Wanting nothing attracts everything. At first, this may sound like a contradiction. How could abundance come to those who no longer seek it? How can we receive when we no longer crave, chase, or cling? And yet, this is the core of spiritual truth. It is only when the hands are empty that they are free to receive. Only when the mind is still, it becomes a mirror to the divine. Picture a lake, utterly still, no ripples, no disturbance. Its surface reflects the heavens with perfect clarity. Not because it tries, but because it simply is. And so it is with us, in stillness, in surrender, in the quiet beyond need, we discover the hidden doorway through which life begins to pour in. This video is not just information, it's an invitation to slow down, to listen, to empty out what no longer serves you so that you may be filled. And as we explore this paradox, we'll see that it's not truly a contradiction, but a secret law of the soul. So take a deep breath, let go, and step with me into this sacred space of not knowing, where everything you've been chasing might finally find you. But what does it mean to let go? The paradox of needing nothing to attract everything is not a trick of language. It's a secret law, hidden in plain sight, misunderstood only because it defies the logic of a mind addicted to pursuit. We're told from the moment we're born that wanting is the engine of life, that to have is to chase, to hold is to reach, and that fulfillment waits on the other side of effort. But what if that very pursuit, the grasping, the needing, the aching, was the very thing pushing what we long for further away? Desire, when it clutches too tightly, becomes a wall. It starts as longing, but morphs into a subtle tension, a spiritual contraction. The more we chase the idea of happiness as something external, just out of reach, the more we feed a silent script, I am not enough, yet. And so, like a mirage, the finish line moves with us. No matter how fast we run, peace always remains a few steps ahead. We run in circles, forever distant from the peace we seek. And this is not poetic exaggeration. It's the lived experience of almost every modern soul. But there's a story that shows the truth more clearly than any explanation could. Imagine a traveler lost in a scorching desert. The sun is merciless. The ground cracks beneath his feet, and he is thirsty, not just for water, but for relief, for survival, for salvation. So he runs, frantic, desperate, scanning every corner of the horizon for an oasis. But the more he runs, the more disoriented he becomes. His eyes blur. Every shadow becomes a false promise. His need becomes a storm, a fog that distorts his vision. Then something changes. His legs give out, his breath slows, and with no more strength to chase, he simply rests. He sits, and in that stillness, the oasis appears, not because it suddenly arrived, but because it was always there, just beyond the frenzy of his desperation. It wasn't the pursuit, the voice tells us, that brought them what they needed, but the release of the need itself. This is not just metaphor, it's memory. You've lived it, haven't you? The job you found only after you stopped obsessing about getting hired. The love that arrived after you stopped searching. The insight that came when you stopped trying to solve it. There's a pattern here, a rhythm beneath reality that cannot be forced, but it can be followed. Rumi, the Sufi poet of the soul, saw this clearly. His words burn with clarity. When I run after what I think I want, my days are a furnace of distress and anxiety. If I sit in my own place of patience, what I need flows to me, and without any pain. These aren't abstract ideas. Rumi describes a furnace, hot, suffocating, all-consuming. That's the state of wanting too much. But then comes the contrast, to sit in one's own place, not to chase, not to demand, but to dwell in patience. And in that quiet stance, life flows to him without pain. He doesn't say he got what he wanted. He says what he needed arrived. That is a different level of intelligence altogether. And centuries before Rumi, Lao Tzu carved the same truth into the Tao Te Ching. If you want to become full, he said, let yourself be empty. If you want to be given everything, give everything up. These words are not poetry for beauty's sake. They are instructions. Empty yourself, not of possessions, but of insistence, of mental noise, of the clenched energy of I must have. To be full of life, you must first make room for it. And so let's do something simple but profound. Close your eyes for a moment and picture a field, not just any field, but an endless one, borderless, no fences, no markers of ownership, just open space, gently breathing under an endless sky. You stand in the center, but there's nothing weighing on you, no goals, no next steps, no chase, just openness. Can you feel the lightness? That is the freedom of not wanting. That is the power of being whole already. That is the field of receiving. And when the winds of life begin to blow through such a space, what arrives is not random. It is right. This is the first step on the path to understand that the clutch of desire creates contraction, and contraction repels. But the openness of no need, that is magnetic, not because it tries, but because it is spacious enough to hold all things. But if letting go creates the space, what fills it? If emptiness draws everything in, then what is the true wisdom of surrender? This is where many get confused, because surrender has been misunderstood. It's seen as passivity, as giving up, as weakness. But in the spiritual traditions that endured for millennia, surrender is not defeat, it's power purified. It's not the end of effort, but the end of resistance. And in that surrender, something greater begins to move through you. We've been taught to force, to strive, to control outcomes. But the truth is, the tighter you grip, the less you hold. Surrender is the act of loosening the grip, not because you're helpless, but because you finally realize you don't need to hold on in order to receive. Imagine a clenched fist. What can it receive? Nothing. But open that hand, and the whole sky can land in your palm. This is the ancient teaching of detachment, not in the cold sense of apathy, but in the warm, steady awareness that nothing belongs to us, and yet everything flows through us. We are stewards, not owners. And the moment we stop needing life to go our way, life begins to move in ways that are far greater than we could have imagined. Buddhism reveals this truth with piercing clarity. Attachment, it says, is the root of suffering, not because wanting is evil, but because it breeds illusion. When we attach to outcomes, to people, to possessions, we anchor ourselves to things that are by nature impermanent. And when they shift, as they always do, we suffer. We mourn not just the loss, but the story we built around it, the identity, the expectation. But the moment we release that grip, we return to what was always within reach: peace. Not as a reward, but as our resting state. The moment we let go of our attachment to the external world, the teachings say, we find that inner peace is always available to us. Always. Not sometimes. Always. This wisdom isn't confined to the East. In the heart of Christian mysticism, the same flame burns. Meister Eckhart, a 14th century mystic who saw through the veil of dogma, said, "To be full of things is to be empty of God. To be empty of things is to be full of God." These are not poetic flourishes. They are revelations. When we fill ourselves with distractions, desires, possessions, we crowd out the divine. But when we empty the space within, when we stop clinging, the light returns. The presence floods in, and we are full in a way no object could ever provide. This brings us to one of the most misunderstood truths of all: the void. To most, the void sounds terrifying, a great nothing, a black hole, a lack. But to the mystics, the void is not emptiness in the sense of being without. It is emptiness as infinite potential. It is not the end of something, it is the womb of everything. In the teachings of Buddhism, this is known as shunyata, the great emptiness. But even that word, emptiness, is misleading unless we go deeper. Shunyata means that no thing has a fixed, separate, unchanging essence. Everything is interdependent, everything is in motion, nothing is what it seems, and in that realization comes great liberation, because when nothing is solid, then nothing can trap you. You become like water, fluid, responsive, free. To embrace the void is to stop fearing the unknown and begin trusting it. The unknown is not your enemy. It is the only place from which newness can arise. If you are always clinging to what is known, you leave no space for miracles. But when you live as an open field, miracles have room to land. This leads us to one of the most elegant spiritual principles ever spoken: Wu Wei. In Taoism, Wu Wei means non-action, but it does not mean laziness. It is not the absence of movement, but the absence of struggle. It is effortless action, flowing with the current rather than fighting against it. The sage does not push the river, he becomes it. He does not chase results. He aligns with the rhythms of life, and in doing so, his actions are effective not because they are forced, but because they are true. It's like watching a master musician. There is effort, yes, but it's invisible. It looks like grace. That's Wu Wei. You move, but only when the moment calls. You speak, but only when silence has ripened into words. You act, but not from urgency, only from clarity. And this is where the still lake returns. Picture it again, a quiet lake, smooth as glass, not a single ripple. The sky is mirrored on its surface so clearly you cannot tell where the heavens end and the water begins. This is not stillness as stagnation. It is stillness as reflection. The lake doesn't chase the clouds, it reflects them. It doesn't grab the moon, it holds its light perfectly without distortion. That's what the surrendered mind becomes. Not an agent of control, but a vessel of harmony. So the message is this: emptiness is not the absence of life, it is the invitation for life to enter. The surrendered mind is not void of will, it is aligned with a higher will. And the more you let go, the more you become a mirror for the divine. And once you've touched that stillness, what then? Do you simply sit in it forever, untouched by life, removed from its movement? No. That silence, that surrender, is not an escape from the world. It's the space from which true engagement begins. When the inner noise has quieted and the cravings have loosened their grip, you begin to notice something extraordinary. Life doesn't stop. It starts flowing differently. From that deep inner emptiness, a rhythm emerges. One that doesn't rush, one that doesn't grasp, a quiet intelligence like the current of a river guiding a leaf effortlessly downstream. This is the beginning of integration, of moving through the world while remaining anchored in that sacred stillness. The Wu Wei, once mystical, now becomes incredibly tangible. It's no longer a theory about non-action, but a lived state where action arises without struggle, where the next step reveals itself not through overthinking, but through deep listening. Suddenly, your decisions no longer come from fear of missing out or pressure to prove your worth. They come from clarity, from resonance. You sense when something is aligned, even if it doesn't make logical sense. You know when to speak and when to remain silent, not from calculation, but from attunement. Opportunities don't just appear. They feel like doors that had always been there, waiting for you to stop pounding on the wrong ones. Synchronicities multiply. You meet the right people. You stumble upon what you didn't even know you needed. Not because you forced life to deliver, but because you finally stopped interrupting its flow. And in this space, new tools awaken: presence, trust, acceptance. These aren't abstract virtues. They become your survival kit for a reality now guided by rhythm, not resistance. You check in with yourself, not just in meditation, but in traffic, in conversations, in conflict. And you ask, am I tightening? Am I grasping again? Or can I soften and trust? To help anchor this wisdom, let these questions echo within you. What am I still gripping that no longer serves me? What would shift if I released just one expectation today? What if I let go, not to lose, but to finally receive? Because living in flow doesn't mean abandoning life. It means meeting life as it truly is. Alive, intelligent, and always trying to guide you home. And in that home, where nothing is forced and nothing is lacking, you'll discover that needing nothing was the doorway to everything. If this video resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Leave a like and subscribe for more esoteric content. Thank you for watching.